A brand new week of Left, Right and Centre. I'm Nidhi Razdan. Tonight, Prime Minister Modi marks 1 year of his government making a strong pro-farmer, pro-poor pitch. Is the Prime Minister trying to reinvent himself? What is the Modi report card? Also tonight, AAP's 100 days in Delhi. Has controversy marred the new government, or are they fighting a just battle? But first on the programme tonight, marking the first anniversary of his government, Prime Minister Narendra Modi today presented a report card at a rally in Mathura, where he asserted that the year has been free of corruption and scams, but has brought bure din for those who've robbed the country in 60 years of their rule. An obvious reference, of course, to the UPA. Mr. Modi also made a very strong pro-farmer and pro-poor pitch during his hour-long speech, but did not mention the contentious land acquisition bill.
365 दिन मैंने जो काम किया है, सरकार ने जो काम किया है, अगर मैं सारा गिनाने जाऊं तो 365 घंटे भी कम पड़ जाएंगे भाइयों बहनों। ये जो चमत्कार दिखाई दे रहा है, ये जो परिवर्तन दिख रहा है, ये जो एक नया विश्वास पैदा हुआ है, चारों तरफ नए उमंग की लहर नजर आ रही है, किसके कारण? उनको परेशानी इस बात की है कि सब लोगों के तो अच्छे दिन आए, लेकिन कुछ लोगों के बुरे दिन आए हैं। और जिनके बुरे दिन आए हैं, उनको जरा परेशानी हो रही है। वो पावर सर्कल के सैकड़ों कोठे ध्वस्त करके आज देश में, दिल्ली के गलियारों में दलालों के लिए कोई जगह नहीं है। भाइयों बहनों, हमने प्रबंध किया कि दिल्ली से रुपया निकले, वो 100 के 100 पैसे गरीब के हाथ में जाने चाहिए, बीच में कोई बिचौलिया नहीं चाहिए, कोई दलाल नहीं चाहिए। और आज मैं गर्व से कह सकता हूं, करीब 1,300, करीब 1,300 कानून, कई कानून मैंने समाप्त कर दिए, कई कानून समाप्त करने वाला हूं। आने वाले दिनों में 1,300 कानून समाप्त हो जाएंगे। अगर आपने ये सरकार न बनाई होती तो पता नहीं महंगाई ने क्या हाल कर दिया होता। हमने महंगाई को रोकने में सफलता पाई है। जिस प्रकार से महंगाई तेज गति से बढ़ रही थी, उसको रोकने में हमने सफलता पाई है। पिछली सरकार का आखिरी वर्ष था, उस वर्ष में 3,000 करोड़ रुपया विदेशी पूंजी आई थी, 3,000 करोड़ रुपया, और एक साल के भीतर 25,000 करोड़ रुपया विदेशी पूंजी आई है। 8 गुना ज्यादा, 8 गुना ज्यादा। मेरे किसान को समय पर जितना चाहिए इतना यूरिया मिलने वाला है।
Well, quite a combative speech there by the Prime Minister. How does Mr. Modi's report card stack up then? And in particular, when you look at the content of his speech and the very strong pro-farmer, pro-poor pitch, is Mr. Modi deliberately now trying to reinvent himself and his government, which has in a sense been fighting a perception battle that it is pro-industry and pro-rich? Joining us on the program tonight are two tireless commentators today, Shekhar Gupta and Ashok Malik, who've been taking us through all the political developments today and tomorrow as well. We have Mr. Bhatendra Singh, Lok Sabha MP of the BJP. Manish Tiwari, former INB minister, joins us tonight. And we have Mr. Yogendra Yadav, co-founder of the Swaraj Abhiyan, joining us tonight from Ahmedabad. Let me first get a comment from Shekhar and from Ashok. Shekhar, to you first. What did you think of the speech in a nutshell?
Somehow it sounded like an election year speech on the completion of the first year. Brand guru Alec Padamsee always says that when somebody hires him to reposition his brand, he never repositions that brand, he repositions the competition. It looks like, could it be that Narendra Modi is now letting Rahul Gandhi reposition his competition? He seemed to be responding to attacks from Rahul Gandhi and from Congress party, trying to say, I am for the poor. I don't think he needs to justify that, because then you start getting muddled up.
So you thought he was defensive?
Quite, I thought, and then you get muddled up. For example, he did not mention the land acquisition bill today, and I will once again say that I support the new land acquisition bill. I think it's a more sensible bill than what we had earlier. The fact is that your entire justification was this will help create jobs. This will create entrepreneurship, that will create jobs. Now to say that industrialists, capitalists, corporates do not create jobs. Look, once you are in that position, people will latch on to every little thing that you say and it will be read back to you. I think, frankly, BJP government is doing very well. They have a lot to speak about in the first year. I think the Prime Minister still has very robust ratings. There is no need for him to be defensive. He is not in a TV debate. He is the Prime Minister for 5 years and there is the reality of 283 in Parliament.
Okay, so Ashok, how do you see it? I mean, did you think it was a little defensive as well, or is this a repositioning of Mr. Modi?
I don't think it's defensive, but yes, there was a lot of election time rhetoric and a lot of going back to what the UPA was. I think to some degree it is expected because his first year is in many ways going to be seen in comparison to the last few years of the UPA. And a lot of his major economic legislations this year, whether GST, which is almost through now, insurance, coal, mining, all of those, were essentially fixing the legacy issues of the UPA. They weren't new innovations, they weren't new steps. They were just clearing up the mess left behind. And he wanted to make that contrast that we are a cleaner government, we are a better government than the previous government. Obviously, his report card at the end of year 2 will be very different. He'll be measured against his own standards then. He can no longer say we were better than UPA.
Yeah.
But this is perhaps the last time or the last few days when he can make the comparison with UPA and say, look, we were much better than them. Second, yes, I think he is conscious of the fact that he doesn't want to make the same mistake that, perhaps the Vajpayee government made in rushing into this India Shining campaign, which was thrown back at them by their rivals. So he's being very careful about that. He wants to take along various constituencies. And he's also conscious of his underdog image, which has suffered a bit in recent days because of bad semiotics. Yeah. He wants to regain that because that is an important part of the Modi narrative.
Okay, so very interesting then. So I'll take this to Yogendra Yadav first before I get the Congress and the BJP involved in this. Mr. Yadav, how did you then see it? I mean, in a sense, from what both our commentators are saying tonight, is that an acknowledgement then that the opposition in a sense has rattled the government just a little bit at least?
I didn't hear the entire speech, but I heard bits of it, and yes, it sounded like an election year speech being given at the end of 1 year. I wasn't sure if this was the most appropriate thing. I thought, yes, there is some bit of pressure which he's trying to release. I heard him talk about urea being made available. Now, if you talk in Meerut and if you say urea will be available to all the farmers, to those who are listening to him in Meerut, they would remember that there has been a tremendous urea shortage in the last 1 year and that it's turned out to be policy induced. This was because imports were very low at that point. So I don't think that makes a very positive statement. I agree with what Shekhar said in one or two respects. One, yes, the PM enjoys good ratings, but please do remember almost every PM enjoys decent ratings at the end of first year. Two, his communication is good, goes without saying, especially if you contrast it with Mr. Manmohan Singh's. Of course, he's much better and powerful communicator. Three, he's trying to compare himself to the last year of UPA regime. Now, in all fairness, anyone in the universe would do better than the last year of UPA too. That was really down in dumps. So if we want a serious comparison, then we have to have somewhat different yardsticks, and I'm not entirely sure if we adopt somewhat different reasonable yardsticks, then we can say they've done very well. I don't think they've done very well.
I think that's an interesting point that you made, that they need to have a different yardstick, and that comparing yourself to the last year of UPA rule isn't exactly the best yardstick to measure yourself by. Manish Tiwari, I'll take that to you, because when we see the Congress's counter, and as an opposition, obviously it is your responsibility also to counter, as the government projects its achievements. But honestly, can you say that there hasn't been any achievement in the last 365 days? Wouldn't it be really cynical to say that the whole of the last year has been a waste?
Well, Nidhi, you need to step back and take a larger view of the last 365 days. And if you analyze it in some detail, you would find that the government tantalizingly swings between an E for effort and an F for failure. And if I add the word A, it would become abject failure. And the reason why I say that is Social cohesion in this country is in tatters today. There is an undercurrent of insecurity among the minorities. Internal security has gone for a complete toss. The day Prime Minister goes to Dantewada, on the same day you have the left-wing extremists kidnapping 300 villagers and the Prime Minister literally pleading with them. Insofar as the economy is concerned, the economy is plunged to the depths of nether. All you need to do is look at government's own data put out by the Ministry of Finance, Department of Economic Affairs for the month of February 2015. That was the last data which was available. 5 core sectors of the infrastructure have recorded a negative growth. Crude oil, natural gas, refinery products, fertilizer and steel. And this is because primarily the engines of the economy are not moving at all. Agriculture compared to the previous year is down to 1.1%. And finally on foreign policy, you've covered the MEA for many long years. Foreign policy is a little more than collecting non-resident Indians and king-coing all over the globe. I would give you a parallel. For example, if the Prime Minister of Nepal was to fill the Indira Gandhi Indoor Stadium and hold forth on everything and sundry, I think a lot of you would have very serious things to say about that. Or for example, if the Prime Minister of Bangladesh was to come here and collect all the legal and illegal Bangladeshis on boat club and celebrate the land boundary agreement, most of you would burst a blood vessel, screaming that this is a assault on India's sovereignty.
Manish, there is something the Prime Minister says that
has stretched the generosity of his host a little too far.
No, I am saying...
are not complaining, but the Congress is.
That's
this is astonishing.
True.
I mean,
and the Australians and the Japanese and the Chinese are completely excited about India's new position and the way we are negotiating, and not to forget the power crisis that has been in the country forever. Now Australia is about to sanction nuclear imports for India.
Mr. Singh, how do you respond to Shekhar's criticism about it being too defensive? I mean, this was a Prime Minister who also, was voted in to bring about economic change, to be pro-business, not in a bad way. You don't have to be bad to be the bad guy, to be pro-business and to create jobs. Suddenly that appears to be a bad word. You do seem to be a little defensive as a party.
No, that's not true. If we look at the figures, they are telling us another story. There's 7.4% growth. There is fiscal deficit is down to 3.9% from 4.6%. Revenue deficit is down to 2.8% from 3.3%. So it's a good time for businessmen. And obviously it is the corporate sector and it is the businessmen who are going to create jobs. Of course, there's a skill development.
But Mr. Modi said the opposite today. He said industry will not create jobs.
So there's a skill development ministry that's working to enhance our labor sector. But of course, then there is this huge fact that because of the last so many years of neglect, there's a huge amount of population completely overemployed in agriculture, and this has to be shifted somehow. And because of this, the land acquisition bill, and so all these things, and then the El Nino.
This opportunity to talk about the land bill today and explain why it was important. Maybe this was a good opportunity to do that. He was silent on it.
Not for the Prime Minister, and I think it's a topic that has been over discussed in Parliament, outside Parliament, within the BJP, within the NDA. We've had so many sittings and so many sessions, and even the opposition, the Biju Janata Dal had 5 recommendations, 4 were accepted, and as the Prime Minister said last time in his speech, that we are still open to any more recommendations coming in. So he's really working as a big-hearted leader, willing to accommodate any good suggestion from anybody.